least 3 killed, in Zaporizhzhia blasts and other 3 were killed, and a toddler is among the injured after missiles attacks tore through high-rise buildings in Zaporizhzhia city. Ukraine's Foreign Minister Dmytro Kuleba slammed the strikes, saying that Russians keep deliberately striking civilians to sow fear. Russian terror must be stopped by force, sanctions and full isolation, he said on social media. The Ukrainian-controlled city is located in the eponymous Zaporizhzhia region, also home to the Russian-occupied nuclear plant that has been the site of heavy shelling. Moscow claimed to have annexed the region last week, even though its forces do not control all of it. Zelensky says Ukraine is keeping Russia's tanks from Warsaw. Ukraine President Volodymyr Zelensky has said his country must fend off Moscow's invasion so that Russian tanks do not advance on Warsaw or again on Prague. Addressing a meeting in Prague of European heads of state convened by French President Emmanuel Macron, Zelensky also called on Western capitals to supply his army with more weapons to punish the aggressor. Russia-Ukraine war latest, Kremlin puppet leader says Putin's defense minister should shoot himself. A Kremlin-installed leader has suggested Sergei Shoigu, Russia's defense minister, and one of Vladimir Putin's closest allies, should shoot himself because of failures in the Ukraine conflict. Kirill Stremalso, deputy head of the annexed Kherson region, poured scorn on Moscow's generals in a highly rare public rebuke of its top brass. In a 4-minute video message, he said, "Indeed, many say, if they were a defense minister who had allowed such a state of affairs, they could, as officers, have shot themselves. But you know the word officer is an incomprehensible word for many." He praised Chechen leader Ramzan Kadyrov's recent criticism of Moscow's generals, after Kyiv recaptured the strategically important eastern town of Lyman. "Let's say this, the Ministry of Defense does not only consist of ministers, generals, corrupt marauders and other various scum, but all those heroes who gave their lives today, who stand to the end," he added. The EU expanded bans on trade and individuals and new sanctions over Moscow's annexation of 4 Ukrainian regions. The measures, which came into force with their publication in the bloc's official, administrative gazette, also pointed the way to an oil price cap on Russian crude transported around the world, but only after details are worked out within the G7 group of nations. Norway limits access to Russian fishing vessels. Norway has banned Russian fishing vessels from visiting all but 3 of its ports, where they must now undergo security checks. Foreign Minister Anniken Huitfeldt told a news conference, "Russia's unacceptable annexations in Ukraine, the attacks against gas pipelines in the Baltic Sea, and increased drone activity has led the government to further tighten security." On why a full ban was not imposed, the government said joint management of fish stocks remained important. Rents soar as 100,000s of Russians flee army draft. Rents are soaring in Central Asian nations, as hundreds of thousands of Russians flee Vladimir Putin's mobilization orders. Kamar Karimova, a university professor in Kazakhstan's biggest city Almaty, had to move out of a rented apartment within a day when her landlord abruptly raised the monthly rent by 42% to 340,000 tenge, £642. "Many of my friends, acquaintances and students ended up in similar situations," she said. Rents have also soared in Georgia, where some landlords have started adding a no Russians clause to their rental ads. The Kazakh government said this week that more than 200,000 Russians had entered the country since Vladimir Putin's announcement last month, and some 147,000 had since left. The Kremlin today denied reports that 700,000 Russians had fled the country since the mobilization decree. Ukraine claims to have recaptured more than 155 square miles in Kherson in less than a week, after Moscow said it had annexed the southern region. The armed forces of Ukraine have liberated more than 400 square kilometers of the Kherson region since the beginning of October, Ukrainian Southern Army Command spokeswoman Natalia Gumenyuk said in a briefing online. Moscow, fully committed to avoiding nuclear war. Moscow has said it remains fully committed to the principle of never allowing a nuclear war to be fought. Foreign Ministry spokeswoman Maria Zakharova told a briefing that Moscow's position that a nuclear war must never be fought had not changed. This is despite President Vladimir Putin having previously said he was not bluffing over his willingness to use nuclear weapons to defend Russia's territorial integrity. Fears have grown over a possible, dramatic escalation in the 7-month conflict with Ukraine. Fire reported after shelling in Zaporizhzhia. Overnight shelling in Ukraine's city of Zaporizhzhia has damaged or destroyed several residential buildings, causing fires and injuries, Regional Governor Oleksandr Staruk said on Thursday morning. As a result of the enemy attacks, fires broke out in the city, Mr. Staruk wrote on the Telegram messaging. There are possible casualties. Rescuers are already pulling people out from under the rubble. Elon Musk claims eastern portions of Ukraine prefer Russia. Tesla chief, Elon Musk, has told his 108 million Twitter followers that some eastern portions of Ukraine have Russian majorities and prefer Russia. The world's richest man shared a map of the country and how its parliamentary constituencies voted in its 2012 elections. It showed large sections of the south and east of Ukraine voted for the pro-Russian Party of Regions. Obviously, not everyone who voted for the pro-Russia party wanted to join Russia, but it would also be inaccurate to say that none did, Musk added. US believes Ukrainians may have been behind car bomb that killed Daria Dugina. Parts of the Ukrainian government authorized a car bomb which killed the daughter of a key ally of Vladimir Putin in Moscow. Kyiv has always denied responsibility for the attack of Daria Dugina, the daughter of a prominent Russian nationalist, in August. But United States intelligence agencies have now concluded that the explosion was sanctioned by parts of the Ukrainian government, in a closely held assessment shared within the United States government last week, according to the New York Times. United States spends $290 million on anti-radiation drugs. The United States government has purchased a significant supply of radiation injury drugs as the Russian president threatened the use of nuclear weapons, Lizzie Roberts and Jamie Johnson write. A $290 million procurement of the drug implied to treat acute radiation syndrome, ARS, was announced by the United States Health and Human Services, HSS. The government confirmed it was the first purchase of the drug, manufactured by the California pharmaceutical company Amgen. The purchase comes after Vladimir Putin renewed his threat of nuclear war. In a speech last month, he vowed to use all the means at our disposal to protect Russia and its people. This is not a bluff, he said. Ukraine could win back Crimea, says United States. Ukraine could retake Crimea if it continues to recapture territory from fleeing Russian forces at its current rate, senior United States military officials believe. Roland Oliphant, Con Colin and Verity Bowman write. The assessment came as Vladimir Putin, the Russian president, acknowledged battlefield setbacks for the first time, and Ukrainian troops pursued the Russian army into the Luhansk region, reversing one of the Kremlin's key gains of the war. Western officials have previously considered retaking Crimea by force impossible, because Russia was expected to fight tooth and claw to defend it. But a senior United States officer told The Telegraph that recent Russian military collapses mean the recapture of Crimea by Ukraine is now a distinct possibility, and can no longer be discounted. This is Europe's biggest crisis since 1945, Prime Minister to tell leaders. The Prime Minister will urge leaders to stand united in the face of Russian aggression, as Europe faces its biggest crisis since the Second World War, when she addresses a regional summit in the Czech Republic today. Liz Truss will attend the meeting of leaders from across Europe to shore up support for Ukraine, and galvanize collective action on energy security and migration, delivering on United Kingdom priorities. In a series of bilateral meetings in Prague, the Prime Minister will encourage countries to go further and faster to end Europe's reliance on Russian hydrocarbons and usher in a new era of resilience and independence. We must continue to stand firm to ensure that Ukraine wins this war, but also to deal with the strategic challenges that it has exposed.